Welcome back, guys. I hope everyone's doing well. Morty, sorry about that. The dog is just opening the curtains. Morty, come on, go lie down. Go on. Go on. Anyway, like I said, I hope everyone's doing well and that you've had a good week. I found things have been going well. I've managed to do a few more painting tutorials for the Romans, and I've got some of the Gauls lined up to do as well. So that's pretty cool. As for the campaign, let's get into it. So at the end of last turn, we had Jackson's forces take Newmarket, and General Ewell. Yes, General Ewell had taken Luray. Union forces had moved down in the west. They had moved down their forces to try and converge the units from Strasbourg, Woodstock, and Mount Jackson had all sort of moved down into Newmarket, where we had the first battle. But overall, it was a Confederate victory. So it's quite interesting. Union forces did get pushed back, and that was kind of where the whole turn ended. So not quite what I was expecting. Probably not quite what you guys were expecting, but interesting because it did somewhat replicate history, apart from I believe Jackson did lose in the first Battle of Newmarket. But anyway, on to turn 2. So turn 2 is going to be covering the period from March the 30th to April the 5th. And this is on here, turn 2. For the initiative, one thing from the previous turn, which I overlooked, was in the historical events. Historically, on March the 27th, Captain Jedediah Hotchkiss, who was one of, I believe, Jackson's cavalry commanders, actually created a very detailed map of the whole sort of campaign area, which gave Jackson just more knowledge of what was going on, and so he could maneuver his troops. So that gives him a +1 to initiative roll each turn. Because it happened on the 27th, it would have had no effect on the movements of turn 1, but it will affect turn 2. So we've got our initiative. So again, we'll roll to find out what's going to happen. So blue dice for the Union, red dice for the Confederates. And it's 1 each. So Confederates gain their +1 because of the map. So that's a Confederate initiative for turn 2. Confederates. Next up, we got the weather, and we are in April now. So let's roll our dice. Where are they? Find out what weather's going to be. We have got 35. So 35 is... Oh, we're going to have some heavy rain. Okay, so any battles this time are going to be affected by that. Morty, up here. Heavy rain. So that could make a bit of an impact, especially on the battles. Hey guys, how are you both doing? Luke, let's go. And Fly Kamikaze. Good to see you both, guys. Yeah, I hope your weeks have been good so far. Anyway, where were we? So we've got heavy rain for our weather this turn. And historical events, yeah, as I mentioned, there isn't another one until the 19th of April. So we'll just put in our detailed map. Detailed map for this turn. Then we've got our random events for Union and Confederates. So we roll first for the Union. And we've got a 5. Field promotion. So one of your commanders gains +1 command point. Cool. So field promotion. That'll help them during the battles. Being able to issue orders, rally troops, all of that sort of stuff. So it's more of a tactical battlefield boost rather than a strategic one, but something that can come in very handy. So we'll figure that one out. Field promotion. Number 5. And Confederates have rolled a 1. Union scouts miss enemy location and numbers. Confederate player gets to move Union forces this turn. Oh, okay, so 1. So what's that saying again in one of the battles? Once the Union player has deployed, the Confederates will be able to sort of redeploy a couple of their units just prior to the battle kicking off, just because they've missed the Confederates' disposition, and so have deployed slightly incorrectly. Mentioned in this previous comment, how is Jackson's sphere? Oh, so a good question about that. As far as the rules, when I wrote them initially, so each commander has a command level. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5. And that's also in effect their health. So depending on if they're getting shot at, depending on the dice roll, they can lose 1 point of health, or they can be killed outright. And then the way that will basically, if they lose, if they've got 5 points to start with, they've got a lot of actions that they can use during the game. 5 orders per turn to make their troops double march, to give them boosts in melee. There's a heck of a lot. I can't think of them all off the top of my head. But they've got 5, let's just say, which they can issue out. If they lose 1 point because they take a minor wound, then they've only got 4 more that they can issue, and their ability to rally troops in melee goes down by in like the morale phase goes down by 1. If they take another minor wound, then they've only got 3 orders that they can issue, and in the morale phase they'll only have sort of 3 points to boost to the troops. And if they drop all the way down to 0, then they're dead outright. So that's how I wrote it initially, is that as they their wounds increase, their abilities to actually have command and control and affect the flow of the battle decreases. If it gets to 0, they die. And then just each turn where each strategic turn where they're not wounded, it'll go back up by 1. So Jackson, he went down, he only had 1 health at the end of the game, so he was very severely wounded. So this turn that'll go back up by 1 point, so he'll now be starting this game on 2, so a lot weaker than he was before. And so it'll take 5 turns for him to get back up to where he was. Hopefully that kind of explains that. But yeah, I did like your points that it could take months and months, so hopefully that kind of plays that out for you. But if not, definitely worth looking into in the future to see if we can retcon that. Cool. What's next? We've got the Confederates. Just write that down. Union Scouts fail. Cool. So next up, we've got the overall sort of strategic map itself. And so what we'll do is refer to the polling, because I haven't checked it to see where we're at. I always like to leave it as a bit of a surprise, so that I'm with you guys at the same time figuring out what's happening. So Union turn 2 options. The poll has said attack in the west and withdraw in the east. So with the arrows on the map, it's showing, I'm trying to look, this force swinging through and sort of coming down in this direction, and this chap coming through here, and then we've got these forces carrying on their withdrawal back up to try and unite with these Union detachments. And for the Confederates options, we've gone for option 1, which is the main push will be with Jackson in the center, so he'll be pursuing. Ewell will dispatch a unit or 2 to join him, and they will advance with Jackson, and Ewell's remaining command will carry on their advance towards Front Royal. And Johnson on himself will remain static, just holding the pass, protecting that corner. But now we've got the movements from these Union forces coming through. Next turn, there may have to be some movement from Johnson, which will be quite interesting. Hey, Blood Gang, your first chance to catch us live. Oh, well, thanks very much for joining us. I'm glad you enjoyed the Civil War. So, yeah, awesome to have you. If anyone's got any extra questions, then just, chuck something in, and I will try and answer it without waffling on too much. Cool, let me put that. Oh, yes. Next thing was the sort of aggression levels of the commanders. So Union 2 options are for them to attack any smaller enemy forces. And the Confederates have gone for attack any smaller enemy force. And close second was move as fast as possible to take territory. So everyone wants the forces to just avoid large battles if possible and fall upon smaller groups. So that's quite an interesting situation. So how is that going to play out? And where's my stick gone? Oh, there it is. So we've got, yes, the orders for the Confederates are to advance in those directions. Confederates have initiative. So this is where I'm going to throw it back to you guys. Oh, wait a second. I still think the Western Federal Forces need to combine at Brandywine. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, actually, especially if they are coming down. Yeah, they could definitely swing round and merge. Yeah, good idea. So that's, I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but that's one thing I do want to try and do is when we are doing the live sessions, rather than me just making the decision, I want to put it out to you guys as well to get your input. So anyone that comes live and takes part will be able to actually help influence the movements of the battlefield itself. So definitely worth joining in just for that. So let's get back to what we're doing. So with General Ewell, let me just find out what troops he had under his command. Where are they? Okay, so General Ewell has 4 infantry brigades and an artillery battery. 4. What do you think we should transfer over to Jackson? Just 1 infantry brigade or 2? Because we only know what he fought against last time. So in this Union detachment here, you've got 2 small cavalry forces and 1 infantry brigade. But we don't know. Well, the commander on the ground doesn't know what's in there. And to be honest, unless I actually start looking back through my notes, I don't at this stage either. So good bit of fog of war. So based off of what we do know, should we split just 1 brigade, 2 brigades? Just the 1? Yeah, I would say that's probably makes the most sense. If he was holding, maybe 2, but as he is advancing, yeah. Okay, cool. So we will dispatch brigade. I'll just make a note of that. You will dispatches 1 brigade infantry to Jackson. Cool. So the infantry can move 2 spaces, so they will be able to go 1 and get to there. Jackson's force will probably, he's going to catch them, so we will have a battle here at Mount Jackson. So they will catch up and they will, I guess, arrive as reinforcements. As far as I'm abstaining from rebel decisions. Fair play. Okay, no worries. So yeah, for those of us that are playing as Confederates at this stage, does this make sense? I believe so, that Jackson is going to be advancing and is going to catch them because we have the initiative. Ewell is sending a brigade, and that brigade will catch up and probably arrive as reinforcements some point during the battle. I like it. I like it very much. Cool. So we'll say that's the point there, and these forces will catch them. So okay, so that's going to be our 2 Confederate moves with 2 battles. As for the Union, we were talking about they were attempting to march back to here. They were attempting to march back to here. Then these chaps were marching down to consolidate. So that's our eastern movements. I think based off of the numbers, we will go to the board to see if these turn into actual battles. But here, I'm pretty sure the Union player will attempt to withdraw. But we'll wait and see. They might put up a bit of a fighting withdrawal to try and put a bit of casualties onto the Confederates. But I'm pretty sure they'll withdraw. At that point, depending on the scenery, the terrain, they may stand and fight. They may try and withdraw. But at this stage, they have been caught, so there will be some action to take place. I do think the Union forces north of Newmarket should fall back. Yeah, so yeah, that was the plan. That's what everyone's voted for, is for these troops here, which we're going to try and withdraw to Strasbourg. But yeah, they've just been caught by Jackson's column. So we'll see if they can fight their way out or evade altogether. We'll see what happens. Over onto this side of the map, we've got the Union forces. So let's just say, so yeah, you were suggesting that the Union federal forces need to combine at Brandywine, so they can move 2 bounds. So would you want them to go down this path here, 1, 2 to Brandywine, and this one, 1, 2 to Brandywine? So that seems quite logical, and then they'll be in that position to then strike through, cut Jackson off from the rear, and his supply depot at Staunton. So that would be quite a strategically important thing to do. Cool. Unless anyone else has any suggestions for the Union, we'll go for that. Cool. So that goes to there. Then threaten Harrisburg. Yeah. Cool. And they'll be going down. So we've got the 2 armies merged there. I did check earlier. The roads won't affect these guys at this stage. If this detachment was with them, then they would be up at, I think, 7 units. So then they would be struggling to get, they'd have to go through any passes in 2 separate groups rather than on themselves. But at this stage, their force, I think it only combines to about 5 units, maybe 6. I'd have to double check. But cool. So we've got a combined Union force there now, which is interesting. But yeah, they won't be able to go any further this turn. So that's quite an interesting lay of the land. Does the heavy rain affect movement? It's in-game for battles, but not on the strategic map. Again, I would say, yeah, you could chuck something in if you were doing a refight for yourself, sort of a homebrew rule. Yeah, you could, I guess, reduce each of the bounds per turn. So cavalry can only go 2, infantry can only go 1. That would probably work quite nicely. Do you want me to put that in now? And it'll slow the Union players down? Or shall we just leave that? All right, for now, maybe we'll just leave it as is. And then it'll affect the battles themselves. And if everyone... I'll put a poll out, actually. If rain hits the next week, slow moves. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say what I might do is just put a poll up so everyone can vote on it. But yeah, let's do it from next week. Cool. I will just write a note of that. Rain affects travel on strategic map from turn 3. Perfect. Cool. So that's our movement phase complete. Now we've got logistics. So at the moment, both forces still have all of their strategic supply depots. So there's no loss there. Confederates receive 2 supply points because of their 2, and the Union will receive their 3. Yeah, if rain continues, then slow, especially artillery. Yeah, cool. That sounds good. Major towns. So yeah, I was thinking about it earlier when I was sort of laying everything out. I was like, are we going to be affected by supply issues for Jackson and this army? Because both of them, I believe, are at 9 units. We should be okay because we have line of supply to the depots. If we didn't, if let's say these guys came to Harrisburg, we would have a broken supply line because it would have to come through. Then Jackson's troops would start to suffer default, basically cohesion loss, strength loss each turn. So that will be quite an important thing for the Union to try and split them from their supply depots. But as it is at this stage, this turn, they're still in supply, so they're okay. But we do gain each turn 1 detachment. So for the Confederates out there, we have got, let's have a look. Or both sides, yeah. So both sides at the start had 3 artillery, 3 cavalry, and 6 small infantry units. Last turn, if I remember rightly, Jackson had an artillery, and the Union, I believe, took cavalry. I think it was. I can check the notes. Let's see. But what would you guys like this turn for your forces? Yeah, these are free. Each turn you just gain 1 detachment per side for free. And that's kind of Reinforcements coming up. That's replacements for those that have been wounded. That's why they're small detachments rather than large. And then you have the option in battle if needs be, or I can distribute those troops amongst the other regiments to boost them up. I meant the maps are free. Which maps are they? Sorry. And where are we? Detachments. Yeah, last turn the Union got cavalry and the Confederates got artillery. Valley Pike was a good firm road, even in wet weather. However, the ground on either side quickly became a bog. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, gotcha about the maps. Okay, cool. And interesting about the Valley Pike. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I guess if you've got large armies, then it can slow them to a certain extent. So, no, that makes sense. That's cool. Alrighty. So, where were we? Yes. So, with our detachments, as the Union players, suggestions. I mean, my thoughts at this stage are probably we would want troops to come in from Manassas Gap or Hagerstown. Coming in at Cumberland is going to take them a long time to get down to support those forces. But maybe they could use the extra help. But I would say probably Manassas Gap is going to be the most logical. And I would say probably either infantry or artillery at this stage, heading to Front Royal to try and support these forces so they can then launch a counteroffensive in the future. Let me know. Artillery from Manassas. Okay, artillery. Sounds good. We can do that. And then they'll go on their one bound using the train lines, I guess, and so they'll reach them. So, Union detachment artillery from Manassas Gap going to Front Royal. And same question over to the Confederates. We've got our two bases. What would we want? Do we want infantry? Do we want artillery? Or do we want cavalry? And where from? Again, from my perspective here, it's a tricky one. Jackson's force is pretty full. I mean, they can take one more unit and then they will be getting slowed on the roads just for having too many troops for the roads. So they're more, actually, no, they'll be at 10 now because they've just taken the brigade from Ewell. So they're basically fully manned. It's any additionals now will risk them suffering cohesion loss and being slowed on the roads. So Jackson probably doesn't need anyone. So we're looking at Ewell and Johnson. Johnson's force, I would say, is probably okay because it's defending the paths, the pathways. So I would say probably Ewell more so than not. But then we've got this force coming through. So maybe Ewell needs infantry or Johnson needs infantry. Tricky one. Or what we might do is leave it to me. I'll make the decision in that case. Let's go for a infantry brigade or unit from Staunton, and then they can try and march north. And then from this point, they're in a good position to be able to either support Jackson, Ewell, or Johnson. So I think that's probably the best way to go at this stage. Gives us that flexibility. So Confederates infantry from Staunton to Harrisonburg. Cool. So that's logistics. Then we will spend the points after the battle to end sort of the reorganization period to try and boost the troops and whatnot. So that's logistics done. Battles for this turn, we're going to have the Battle of Mount Jackson, potentially, unless the Union troops evade and escape Jackson. And we've got Bentonville. So again, similar situation there. There could be a battle, or they could evade them, whatever the situation is on the day. That's for after the battles. That's the cohesion of the armies. And again, unit experiences for after the battles are played. So yeah, that's turn 2's situation, which I think is going to be quite interesting, to be honest with you. Yeah, I definitely agree that the Union player definitely needs to withdraw this army back to Front Royal. I would say, if possible, get that army back as well. The only potential issue that I can see is because that's quite a large force, although they have suffered cohesion damage through their previous fights. If they get back up to Strasbourg, they will then have to probably disperse between a couple of different locations just so that they don't suffer the degradation of sort of over manpowering the towns and their supply lines. Hard to calculate how heavy rain would affect the federal invasion attempts. Yeah, what I do have is this graph here for the withdrawals. So, I mean, it's not going to be the be all and end all, but it is kind of a bit lower. So you've got, are there clear skies, light rain or fog, and heavy rain? And it's also based on, does the enemy have equal cavalry to you, more cavalry than you, or less cavalry than you? And then you just roll accordingly. And that's how basically I come up with whether they can escape without damage, or whether they do get caught by the enemy and there is casualties inflicted. There will be, if they do try to evade, let's put it that way, both armies will take damage. It's not just the ones trying to withdraw who take loss. Both sides take loss. So it's kind of a bit more balanced in that regard. It gives them a boost since Jackson would be off his game and not driving his army, since he's a bit so yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can put that in. We can give them a modifier on that. Yes, so modifier to Union to evade plus modifier to Union to evade at Mount Jackson. Yeah, that's a very good idea. So once we get to that point, if my opponent does not wish to fight, then we'll chuck that in and see what happens. But no, that'll be quite an interesting one. I like it. It is true. He is a Yankee, so he is trying to feather the nest for them. Yeah, I do like these ideas. Yeah, that's why I'm taking all these notes to chuck in. So yeah, awesome idea. Yeah, keep them coming for sure. Do any of you guys have any other questions, suggestions, anything about the campaign as it is? Anything you'd like to see more of, less of? Also, in regard to the end of turn sort of roundups that I do, is there anything more you'd want to see in them, or less that you'd want to see in them? Had a GGG grandfather fight. Oh, well, fair enough. Yeah. Did he fight any of the sort of big battles that you're aware of? Yeah, no. Being British, I didn't have anyone take part in the American Civil War, at least not that I'm aware of, so I can't really join in with that. I did have people in the Zulu War and the Crimean War and the Napoleonic Wars, but that's about it. That's a shame, but good on him. So I think that pretty well wraps us up for this week. We'll see how this weekend's battles go, which will be quite interesting, actually, because we roll each week just to let you guys know as to who is going to be playing which side. So last time I played as Confederates just because of the dice roll, and this time it could be me as Union, as Confederates. If I'm playing as Union, then I will be trying to attempt definitely to withdraw with this force, and then that one, my thoughts would be look at the terrain, and if it looks favorable, then possibly fight for as long as possible and then withdraw. If it looks unfavorable, then I'll just withdraw. Oh, it's conscripted. Unlucky. Sons of Union veterans of the Civil War. Nice. If I'm the Confederates, then I will be attempting to catch and destroy. And again, catch and destroy. So depends on, I guess, the dice roll and what my adversary wishes to do. But that gives you an idea of what will be happening or I'll be attempting to do should I take command of either side. But yeah, thanks very much, guys. I think we are pretty well all wrapped up. I don't think there's anything else I need to add. All I'll need to do once we finish is go through all of my notes and figure out which units are in armies and the Confederate armies. And that's about it from me. So I won't take up any more of your time, but thank you very much for joining in. Thanks for all the comments. Yeah, really enjoying it. So until next week, I hope you have a great weekend and hopefully you have some good games. Thanks, guys. And take care.